Welcome to Offwatch, a podcast by the Ocean Race. Welcome to Offwatch, our weekly interview series. A slight change of tack for this episode. I got a chance to talk to Yoann Richomme, not a name that all of you will be familiar with, but a rising star in the offshore circuit and the skipper for the Mirpuri Foundation's entry for the next edition. Now, how do you land a role like that? Well, just listen to his amazing story and where he's gained his experience. Also, we get his take on the VO65 and why he's excited to let the throttle open in the Southern Ocean. If you enjoy this interview, subscribe for more and leave us an idea in the comments who you want us to talk to next. Enjoy. Well, Yoann Richomme is the skipper of the Mirpuri Foundation's team for the next edition of the race, Racing for the Planet. Now, how does somebody that's never done the race before land the role of skipper in their first entry? Well, you only need to look at the results of the Solitaire de Figaro, the incredibly ruthless solo offshore race, the French proving ground for future ocean race stars. And Yoann has won this race twice, and that's a very rare thing indeed. Mix into that some experience with the IMOCA 60s, a win in the Rue de Rhum in the class 40, and you begin to understand why this person has been labelled as a potential major star of offshore sailing in the future, if indeed he isn't already. So, Yoann, I mean, obviously you've done some pretty big things. You've got the knowledge, you've got the skills to make a big impact, but the next thing is, considering all the successes you've had before, they've mainly been solo, they've mainly been short-handed sailing. So I guess you've got to build a team. How do you go about expanding your sort of performance from a 1-2 person operation to a large team, like something that would be required for the ocean race?
Well, yeah, for sure. It's the question I get all the time. People think I only sail solo. Well, I think I've actually done most of my racing crewed. You know about it because we race together. And so, back in the days of uni, between 2003 and 2006, we had a student team running on the Tour Val, a very big race at the time. And that's how I got into racing, first of all. And so I got into racing through crew sailing, which is the one I always preferred. But the thing is, in France, if you want to have a professional career in sailing, you need to go through the solo route, And so at the beginning, I told myself that I needed to do the solitaire once in my life to, have no regrets and to give it a try. It kind of went well. And I kept on going. I kept on going. Well, the first few years weren't as good as the last ones, huh? But I kind of kept on going that way. But I've done obviously solo sailing for the past 10 years now.
Yeah.
But I've always liked and actually preferred crewed sailing. They're both very good. They both have their challenges. And obviously, this is a really big challenge for me, is going back into the hardest crew race there is. So I need to get back into selecting people, which was what we were doing before everything started to lock down. But yeah, the challenge is huge, and I think that I can concentrate on that for the next year and a half, which is good, and knowing that I've got the knowledge to do the rest of the sailing, and that I already have a few people I want to take with me who have the same culture, and as well that Franck Camas and Charles Caudrelier have proven that what we do in France can be useful on a crewed international race. So I'm not too worried about the knowledge we have. It's the challenge is definitely building the team.
Well, you mentioned university, and I just want to flag something up, just because I want to get to this later on. I mean, we went to the same university together, yacht design. So there's a sort of, a naval architect, a kind of a science approach to sailboat racing. And I want to pick apart your knowledge from foil-assisted sailing, because I know you've done a lot of that sort of things with the Figaro 3 and the IMOCA 60. But before I do that, where you say, okay, you've got to build a team. As a skipper, how on earth do you even come close to replicating the sort of challenges that a team in the ocean race is going to be under for 9 months in the Southern Ocean, tired, wet, hungry? How do you replicate something like that in order to see whether a potential teammate has the right stuff?
Well, I actually don't think you can perfectly do it. You can try and get close to it, but you'll always be lacking the time thing, because you're not going to take somebody out, on a trial for 3 months out to sea. So obviously that's going to be a tough one. What we've actually done, if you've seen the video, we started crew trials. When was that now? Beginning of March, and I've completely disconnected now. And we brought them over to France to do the trials on Figaro 3s, because I wanted to put them in a difficult situation where they had to not sail the boat single-handed, but double-handed. And we knew that in March in France, you still get some rough conditions, which is actually what we got, because we pretty much got at least 20 knots every day. And so that was a very nice and very useful thing to do. We saw a lot of talented people, a lot of different skills as well, and we worked as well on the psychology side of things. So we have a good overview of around 12, 13 sailors right now. As you know, the rules make the crew really young, because you have to have a lot of people under 30. So we started concentrating on that. Obviously, I'm bringing in experienced people to take care of the rest of the crew. But the selection of the young guys and girls is a really big challenge, and we try to start with that, and because we have the time on our side, and as I said when I started answering this question, it's hard to know people in the long run. So the chance is to select people now and already have kind of a run until next year before we get to the race. So that's how we want to use the time.
How does somebody go about, if they're going into something like that with a crew trial? Are there any sort of do's and don'ts that you wish that they would have learned? How do you stand out in the right way, and what's something that you shouldn't do that would make you stand out in the wrong way?
Well, yeah, I think I've talked to a lot of people about the Volvo Ocean Race already, and you can see that it's a tough challenge, and pretty much no one gets it right. It's a kind of like the Figaro. It's a challenge of the one that makes the least mistakes. It's not the one that doesn't make any mistakes. You're always going to make some. I have no doubts about that. I'm going to make mistakes. There are no doubts. I'm going to select people which I'm going to regret, and sure, maybe I'll have time to change. Maybe I won't, and I'll have to work around it. There are no doubts about that. And you got to make the best of it. There's no formula. Otherwise, it would be way too easy.
For those people that are unaware of what the Solitaire de Figaro is, how would you try and encapsulate what that event is and what a test it is for the sailors?
It's hard to answer, but sometimes I say that if you want to get into the top, usually for most people, if you want to get into the top 10 of the Solitaire, it takes at least 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So it gives you an idea of how tough it is. Very few people make it into the top 10 or top 5 within 3 years. It's very hard. And it takes at least, 3, 4, 5, sometimes way more years to get your first win in the Solitaire, or even the first win of a windward lure race, or the first win in training in Port La Forêt or stuff like that. It's massively, it's a massive achievement to get to that point, because you need to master pretty much everything about sailing. You need to make the boat go fast, so you need to be able to prepare your boat, to trim it, set up your mast, choose your sails, and then be good in electronics, set up your autopilot, use your computer, do some weather routing, know the weather, do some tactics, obviously, manage your sleep, know yourself, which is pretty much the hardest thing there is really how to get yourself to a better level than when you started, because you can always improve technically. That's not very hard. You go talk to the right people, you do the right training, you spend the hours, that's fine. But getting to know yourself and to progress and to improve on your sleep, your tiredness, your stresses, there are so many subjects. I spent so much time on it. That is the extra mile that you need to go to win these events, because that everybody is very good technically in the end. Everybody.
I mean, I'm just trying to think. I mean, lots of people have said that there's no better place than the Solitaire de Figaro, because you're talking legs that are sort of 2 days, 3 days, 4 days of racing by yourself solo on this boat, and it's coastal racing. It's backwards and forwards across the the channel between the UK and France. That almost, in my mind, that almost makes it tougher than sailing on an open sea. There's so many different weather systems that can come through, so many different currents. I mean, how long do you set the boat up, get into a rhythm, and say, this is going to be good for the next hour, 2 hours? I mean, what does it look like?
20 minutes, max. Max, no doubt. I mean, first of all, it's the right sleep rhythm is about 15 to 20 minutes for everybody. So you're not setting your alarm clock for any longer than that, because then you get into too much sleep and it's hard to wake up. And then you lose the rhythm. And then there's a security thing, is that if you have two boats coming head to head, 20 minutes is about the time you have, visually. So you know that if you can't see anything ahead of you, you probably won't hit it for the next 20 minutes. That's kind of the thing. but you're right. So, the race being in between like Ireland and Spain, and the past few years a lot in the channel, means that, well, you've got the currents, you've got the winds, obviously, which are tricky. The currents are very tricky, but then you've got all the fishing boats. Everything is mostly on AIS now, and you've got all the traffic coming across the channel, and the seaweed, which is like the most annoying thing there is you do seaweed checks every 10 minutes, full seaweed checks, keel, rudders, props. It's mental. That gets you. It made me crazy. Sometimes it just there's so much seaweed that it slows the boat down, and sometimes you can feel it. We're so used to the boat that sometimes you can feel the seaweed on the boat, on the rudders, sleeping downstairs. It's like that. You feel the boat so much, you know the boat so much that, like, sometimes I can tell you which setup in the autopilot we have just by the way it's helming. I remember that, and it's because we spend 150, 200 days on the boat per year. It's what I was saying to most people is like, but how are you going to handle the offshore side? We sail offshore 150 days a year. We have the Figaro circuit is 5 to 7, 8 events a year. The big one is the Solitaire. The Solitaire takes a month, but some of the years we have double-handed or single-handed transats across the Atlantic. So that's 2 months of preparation, 3 weeks of sailing, plus getting the boat back. It's a big circuit. You get to rest for maybe a month. December, a bit of January. That's it. The rest of it is you're on, the racing program. So it's very full on.
Why do it? I mean, it sounds horrible. I mean, it sounds horrible.
The challenge. There's nothing. I mean, obviously there is the Volvo or the Vendée Globe. There are other big challenges, but they're every 4 years. The organization is massive. It's completely different. This circuit is a professional circuit from which you can live, and that happens every year. That's why I got into it, and the challenge as well. I mean, when you do it, you've got a very good level. Some years is probably better than others because you got more sailors with past victories or talents and stuff that have come back into the race. But it's a massive event. It's a crazy event. It's the Olympic Games of offshore racing, and it's going to be in the Olympic Games in 2024. And for sure, there's nothing like it. Or some of the sailors that come in and out of the class say that it's pretty close to an Olympic campaign preparation.
And of course, you look at some of the names of the people that have done it before, and like I was saying, you can understand why, if you were building your ocean race team and you needed to pick experienced, well-versed in sort of team management, in campaigning, you'd go to the Figaro fleet and you pick some people out. You yourself, you've done this race 8 times. You've done the Solitaire de Figaro. First one in 2010, where you made a bit of a splash as finishing second rookie. And I just want to make sure I've got this sort of story right. You weren't, your entry into the event was basically working as sort of shoreside support for some of the big names, Nico Lundvin, who was navigating on board the last edition of the Ocean Race. And then you get a chance, you get on board, you get your own boat, you go for it, you finish with second rookie. And like you were saying, it takes a while, doesn't it? Because it's 2016, 6 campaigns later, and then you get the win. And that must have been quite a moment to have been slogging at that for 6 years.
I actually didn't think I would ever win it. I was working towards it. Obviously, you don't spend that much time on this project, but it's such an incredible goal that I knew in 2013 I finished 4th, so I knew I came close. But it's still another step to go and win it and to manage the win as well. And so that was massive. And I knew that I was at the end of my contract with Massif, and so I knew that I didn't have sponsorship in the next year. And I wanted to stop because I had done it for 6 straight years. Or is that 7? That's actually 7 straight years. And I just couldn't take it anymore. I mean, the boat was the Figaro 2, was getting old, so sometimes it gets a bit on your mind, but it's just too much, too intense. I mean, I had no life outside of this, no life. Seriously, like there was almost no vacation with the friends. I missed most of my friends' wedding because they were all during the Figaro. And, it was like that. It was a complete immersion into the system to try and get better at this stupid little game.
Oh, no, that brings me to something though, because you mentioned the Figaro 2. So the Figaro 2 gets replaced by the Figaro 3, and this is a boat that's it's a bit of a step change in terms of technology, in terms of the foil-assisted systems that we're now seeing with the Mocha 16 that's going to feature in the next edition of the Ocean Race. And you were involved with the development of that boat and how it sort of came about. Where were you in that system of, going from a boat with the Figaro 2 is fairly conventional, the Figaro 3, things have sort of taken a bit of a step change. Where did you fit into that system?
Very early on, because I was part of the team that picked the characteristics for the boat. So we started in I think 2016, and we were all tired with the boat. It was more than 15 years old then, and it really felt like we were sailing an old boat compared to everyone else. It made almost no sense. We're still on symmetrical kites with pull, driving that in 30 knots, and so no bowsprit, no gennaker. So we're sailing, like a very different type of sailing. So as well, it was making it hard for the new guys to come in. Like we had some of the young guys, they had never seen a spinnaker pole in their life. Mm. So they would come from JAT or whatever, pretty much any other class, and they would go, what the hell is this? So at one point we said, okay, this is it. We need to invest in a new fleet. So basically we went back to Benito and said, do you want to do a new fleet with us? And so they said yes. but we want a technology to stand out, so just don't make a Figaro 2 with a bowsprit, basically.
Make a big change, make a big step up.
Make a big change, but that's visible. So that was kind of the marketing side of it. There's no point in lying about it. So they wanted something visible, so we worked around it. That's why we have a very different system of foils to most of the other boats. And so I was involved from a very early stage, picking the characteristics, basically what size, compared to the investment we wanted to make, and, the sail area, number of sails and stuff like that. And the races we wanted to race, and how many people on board, and all this. And then I took the project on. I represented the sailors in the design team with VPLP and Beneteau, and went all the way to the first sea trials. And then I thought that was it, because I wasn't going to go back to the Figaro until I got the call last year to race the boat in its first season.
And this was a last minute call. I mean, this was Charles Caudrelier was meant to be he had a boat, he was meant to be sailing, he gets called away, you step in. I'll give you your moment. What happens next?
He gave me the call a month and a half before the race, so we just set up a simple little project, and I went for it, and actually won it, won the first leg. And then, I did what was it? I did a 1, 2, 13, and 4 result on the legs, and won it by like an hour and a half. It was just.
But that's crazy. But that's crazy because there's such a piece of that puzzle that's missing. Because this is one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about: sailing with foils. So it's a new type of sailing. Relatively, most people will not have got anywhere near sailing with any kind of foil assisting. You jump into a boat with a month and a half. I mean, how did you have to change how you approached sailing when you sail with the foils, or did it just the technology worked?
I think it works. A lot of people don't understand it that way, but I mean. What you have to understand is it's a heavy boat, so it won't foil obviously like an Imoca or like a Moth or anything like that.
Sure.
It's 3 tons for less than 10 meters, so it's still a heavy boat. But they do work as kind of dagger boards upwind, which you can trim. So that was a big part of what we had to find out was how to use them upwind, because for the rest of it, it's not too hard. As soon as you go fast, you can, you go max rake on the foils and use them as best as you can. They do go really fast, and, you get some really big averages near 20 knots. So for a 3-ton, 9 meter 75 boat, it's pretty amazing. Like, it really goes. It could be even better, but it really goes. And so you have to get used to it. So what was good was that, even though I'd sailed the boat a little bit in the pre-season, but not all that much, everybody was still learning. So the options were, wide open as to how to use the foils, when, and what angles to, sail the boat and stuff like that. So that was really fun. And that's the part I liked. And that's the part as well I enjoyed in the Class 40 the year before, was getting to know the boat really fast and get, not all, but most of the potential out of it really, really quickly. And that was fun.
Do you prefer that? Do you prefer a blank sheet of paper rather than, do you find that a little bit more invigorating rather than here's the tuning guide, off you go?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, obviously, yeah. It's more fun. It's more fun because there are more things to find out. There's no doubt about that. So, it was a good thing. But as well, I think, all these years in the Figaro 2 shows you that even though you're on your 15th year of sailing the boat, you still find things to make it go faster. It's a tiny bit, for sure. It's a tiny bit. But you always find things. and it just makes you work so hard. When you've lived that, every little detail counts, and that you will do whatever it takes to find that next little detail that will, just keep on adding up, and in the end, make that little bit of a difference.
I'm going to change. Yeah. You can edit that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's fine. So then the VO65, which you're lined up as skipper, racing for the planet with the Mirpuri Foundation, that's a one design. And not only is it a one design, but in my experience anyway, it's an incredibly strict one design. There are barcodes on the end of the ropes to make sure that they haven't been swapped out for lighter ones, longer ones. So it's a little bit of a shift of gears into a very tight one design racing. How does your mind approach that in the quest for an edge for speed?
Well, the feeling I have is it's very close to the Figaro one design rules. It's a bit more because the sails are one design, like the computers and stuff. I mean, quite a few more things are one design. But it's still the same. It's very strict, so you need to know the rules, the intricacies of the rules, exactly what you're allowed and not allowed to do, and you have to play with that. And you have to, what I said before, is you have to find all those details that make the boat faster within a very tight, allowance. And I really like that. I'm really passionate about making these boats go faster. So it can be the IMOCA where you make really big difference in really big changes, and it can be the one design side of things. And I think for that the 65 is a great boat, and I actually think the racing could be very interesting in the 65.
The 65s can, they have been they're chasing big weather, chasing big waves. You can really seem to sort of push those boats. What opportunity have you had so far to kind of push the throttle down on a 65, or are you still waiting for that chance?
No, we've actually done it. We did almost a week of training in Cascais in February, I think, and we went out in 30, 35 knots. So I got to see how it was downwind. It was a good lesson. We took the boat up to 31 knots, and
oh, nice.
Yeah, it was big waves and stuff, so it was very, very interesting. I can see that what shocked me the most was the impact of the waves on the helmsman and on the crew. That is something we're not used to because we're mostly covered. I mean, on the IMOCA, you can be at 25, 30 knots with a full sail and everything under the coach roof drinking tea. I mean, you're just sitting there looking at the computer and playing with the autopilot. It's completely different. Try doing that on a 65. It's a very different type of sailing. I can see how tough it is for sure. It was a very useful session because now I understand more of what I need from people, and and how it's going to be in the race, even though that was only a 2-hour session.
You're on there on a 65 with now a lot of people wanting to be in your shoes. Does it just feel like another day in the office, or do you have to sort of hide the smile occasionally?
I don't know what to say. It's just it's a dream, because this ocean race, I would dream of it, but it's kind of like the solitaire wind. I would dream of it, but I'd never actually think it would happen. Yeah. And not even as a skipper. I know I was going to go. I was trying to look, to be a crew on one of the boats, but this is my dream position. I actually did a podcast, almost a year ago now, where the person said, "What would be your dream job?" I said, "Skipper in the Volvo Ocean." So I can't lie now. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell by the tone of your voice you're itching to get back out on the water. So I'm hoping to see you guys out there fairly soon. Yeah. Well, because you were saying the other day, you can see the sea from your house at the moment, so it's sort of tantalizingly close, but you can't actually get out there.
We're not allowed to sail in France, pretty much as anywhere else, I guess. And so we're going to be able to sail on May 11th again. So that would be, I can't wait, because it's been a long time. But I've actually I've actually, forgot about sailing for a month and a half. I then, it was weird because we finished the crew selection on the Friday, and on the Monday we were on the lockdown. And so I went from building a Volvo Ocean race team to having no idea where the world is going now. And yeah, so I've completely shut off. I went to completely different subjects, and now I'm getting back into it because obviously, we can see a little bit of light at the end of the first tunnel.
Yeah. Yoann, thank you very much. I mean, thank you very much for talking to me. Thank you very much for letting me cheat off your exam papers all those years ago at university. That was greatly received.
That's only because I cheated on somebody else.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, I'll pass it on to you. Can pass it on. We'll pass it. It was probably Ollie. I'll pass it on to Ollie. All right, mate. Listen, thank you very much for talking to me. And fingers crossed we see you guys out in the water soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, very soon. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right. See you, mate.